ستبدأ بعد قليل الجلسة الحوارية التالية تحت عنوان دروس من الفضاء للعالم. تستضيف الجلسة رواد الفضاء سلطان النيادي وهزاع المنصوري وستيفن بوين ووارين هوبرغ وأندري فيديايف وفرانسيسكو روبيو وسيرجي بروكوبييف وديمتري بيتلين. تحاورهم جين ويثرسبون من Euronews. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. Starting in a few moments, a panel discussion titled Learnings from Space for Humanity, featuring astronauts and cosmonauts Sultan Inayati, Hazar Mansouri, Steven Bowen, Warren Hoburg, Andrei Fedyaev, Francisco Rubio, Sergei Prokopiev, and Dmitry Petelin. The session will be moderated by Jane Witherspoon from Euronews.
And please, I know we've just had that fantastic entrance, but please, one more time, put your hands together for Expedition 69 ISS mission crew. Now, I'm very excited to be here. My name is Jane Witherspoon. I'm the Bureau Chief for the Middle East for Euronews. And as you can see, there isn't even enough space to give me a chair, gentlemen, because we've got so many of you here today. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to Sergei Prokopiev, Commander. Flight Engineer Frank Rubio. Flight Engineer Dmitry Petelin. Flight Engineer Steven Bowen. Flight Engineer Woody Hoburg. Flight Engineer Andrei Fedyaev. Flight Engineer Sultan Inayati. And more, finally, last but not least, another homegrown talent, Hazar Mansouri, Increment Lead. So what we will do is, just to give you a little bit more information about each of their roles, we'll start at the end, and if you can just tell our audience a little bit about what your role is.
Sure, thank you so much, Jay. So my name is Frank Rubio, and I served as a flight engineer and the USOS lead for Expedition 68 and 69. And I had the pleasure of serving with Sergey and Dmitry for 12 months on the space station, and for 6 months with my rest of my 69 crewmates. So.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hazar Mansouri. So I'm glad to be here with my colleagues from Expedition 69. I was serving as the increment lead for the 69, so I was at NASA Johnson Space Center, watching them every day for the past 6 months.
Hi, everyone. I'm Woody Hoberg. I was assigned as the pilot of the Crew 6 mission, and it was just an absolute honor getting to serve as a flight engineer during Increment 60, a part of Increment 68 and all of Increment 69 with the rest of these guys.
Assalamu alaikum, صباحكم الله بالخير. Sultan Inayati, mission specialist in the SpaceX Dragon, and flight engineer in the Expedition 69 aboard the International Space Station.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sergei Prokopiev. I was commander Expedition 68, 69, and commander of Soyuz MS 22 and 23. A lot of ships, a lot of expeditions. 1 year in space.
Steve Bowen. I was commander of Crew 6 for SpaceX for launch, and then a flight engineer for Expedition 68 and 69, short time on 68 and 5 months in 69. It's a real honor to be on board with the Soyuz crew that spent over a year in space. Pretty amazing.
Hi, my name is Dmitry Petelin. It's an honor to be here. I'm a flight engineer of my commander as my crewmate Frank Rubio. We've been on the same ships, MS-22 Soyuz and MS-23, and I reached my first year in space and hope it will continue. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I actually asked them backstage. Great fun fact for you, but they've actually collectively spent more than 50,000 hours in space between them, which I think is absolutely remarkable. So let's get down to business. We'll start the questions, and I think we have to go over to Hazar first, since we're on home territory here. Can you please explain to us what were the primary goals and accomplishments of Expedition 69?
So basically, Increment 69, they did more than 200 experiments on board the International Space Station. It's one of the increments. So each 6 months, we have increments. And the objectives from the beginning, from establishing the International Space Station, is to develop new technologies on board the International Space Station, to do more science on board the International Space Station. And that would have been done for the past more than 20 years. So I was really honored to be part of that expedition as increment lead. And during that time, they did more than 200 science, as I mentioned, and also a spacewalk, more than 3 of them. One of them Sultan participated on. And basically, mostly was targeting, establishing, and developing a new IROSA, which is a new solar panels outside the International Space Station, as a technology demonstration also. So. It was a huge accomplishment for them, definitely, and I think they can elaborate on that also.
Thank you. Sergey, as commander, how did these objectives align with the broad goals of the International Space Station program?
Well, our expedition started in September 2022, and we were supposed to spend about 6 months at the station. We planned to have 5 spacewalks, and we were supposed to conclude the integration of our module, the new module of the Russian segment at the station. We worked jointly with the international crew in the interests of the development of the International Space Station. including changing the power unit on the American segment in the process of overboard activities of the crew of the American segment of the station. We also performed a whole lot of different experiments that in the future will help us in developing the studies and research for faraway space. And this is the main purpose of our mission. Thank you.
Thank you. Woody, were there any specific or technological breakthroughs that the mission accomplished?
Sure. So as Hazar mentioned, the purpose of the space station is scientific research, and we had the honor to participate in a wide range of both scientific research experiments and then also what I would call technology demonstrations. We also got to do a lot of maintenance on board the space station, so we got to install some new solar arrays among many other EVA objectives. We did so many cool things, but as one example, we actually printed the first section of human meniscus in space. We used basically a biological kind of 3D printer. And the idea behind this technology is that these biological structures, they can't support their own weight when they're being fabricated. They would become a puddle if you tried to produce them on Earth. But in weightlessness, we're able to produce these complex biological structures. So we actually demonstrated this printing of a section of meniscus, and that facility, after that initial success, is going on to print cardiac tissues in the future, and then onto blood vessels, which are even more complex to print. So that's just one small example of all the exciting work that we're doing every day up aboard the space station.
What were the, I guess, the challenges and difficulties that came with that example that you've just given us?
We actually, it took a long time to have success printing that meniscus. We were, I think many of us were actually in the glove box working with that equipment for many hours in the early parts of our expedition. And there were many problems, actually. We were not successful initially. The team on the ground is amazing. They did a lot of troubleshooting, and this entire team working on the ground found some solutions, and we were able to finally have success toward the end of Crew 6's stay aboard. But it's just amazing seeing, we have our hands in the glove box every day, but then there's this team on the ground that's doing all the troubleshooting and really coming up with the solutions that allow us to succeed.
Stephen, how would you say that this mission's achievements will shape the future endeavors in space?
Well, we're just one part in the chain. So we've had 69, we're in 70 expeditions now. And since we essentially completed building space station about 13, 14 years ago, it's been an ongoing research platform. We were doing research prior to that, but it's just, we're one part. And so after 69, 70 expeditions, we're just continuing and learning. And what we've learned so far has already had impacts around the world, and we're going to learn even more. It all builds on itself. It's very exciting.
We're going to move on shortly to, life in microgravity and how you all got on. We're going to get really into the juicy bits in just a while, but a few more questions. Hazard's laughing there. A few more questions just about this mission. Did Expedition 69 involve the development or testing of new technologies while you were there?
So new technologies, well, just continuously operating the vehicle in space. I'm trying to think if we had any new systems. We installed arrays, but we've had arrays that have, we're getting better at it. We're almost done with installing new arrays. What I found interesting is we actually delivered a module on my second flight in 2010, which they went outside and actually completed the work on in April of 2023. So it's about 12, 13 years from beginning of one mission to the end of the other. So that's pretty amazing to me, that it's just an ongoing investigations. And as Woody pointed out, the experiments that we're doing, they're continuously new. And the research that we're doing, every day there's new findings that will impact life here on Earth, which is the real reason we fly in space.
Yeah. Frank, we've heard there about how you guys are just a small part of the bigger picture. Tell us a bit about international collaboration and what part that played into this mission.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest benefits of the International Space Station is the collaboration that we're able to share and really the friendships that we're able to develop. But just while we were there, obviously we had so many different nations represented. And so with Expedition 68, we had Koichi from Japan, and then Sultan came on board with 69. Soichi then showed up with 70. As part of the Axiom crew, we also had 2 other Arab astronauts show up on station. And so, just this mutual dependency that we have with each other, because the reality is all of our lives depend on each other to live up there. And so the fact that we're able to put our differences aside, come together and have this continuous human presence in space for 23 years, despite our differences, we're able to work together and keep this thing going. And so I think we serve as a great example of what we can do when we put those differences aside and we have a mutual goal and we can go out and achieve great things.
Sultan, can I ask you what you think about what impact this mission has had on public perception of space exploration and I guess its importance as well?
Honestly, grateful to be representing the UAE and the region during this mission. And if you look at it, we had 2 astronauts flying to space in the 80s, 85 and 87. And then it was like a long pause of more than 30 years with no astronauts going to space. Came to Hazar Mansouri when he flew to the International Space Station in 2019. My mission was the second mission from the UAE going to the International Space Station. And it was the longest Arab mission, so right from the beginning we wanted to do like a good preparation for it. So we had teams working tirelessly to make this a very successful mission, like doing everything. Showing the importance of going to space and why do we do science in space. And we had a solid plan to reach every possible student in the Arab world and the world overall. So we had continuous public appearance. And I remember one day Steven Bowen was asking me, do you ever sleep when you work? But yeah, the main target was to reach every single student, give them some insight about the missions to the International Space Station. So overall, I think the impact was really good. Many people, after Hazar's mission, I mean, going to schools, many students, they will say, we want to be Hazar. They don't say, we want to be astronaut. They say, we want to be Hazar. Nowadays, they say, we want to be Sultan. But yeah, we go there and we talk to the students and we tell them that this is possible. Maybe in the 80s it was something difficult, but here we are today talking about a second mission, very long duration mission, 6 months, and then another achievement doing an EVA, an actual EVA into the outer space. So collectively, I think it was a very successful mission, and it had a very good impact inside the country and overall in the Arab region.
You mentioned there, people wanting to grow up and be like you guys. It's kind of every little boy and girl's dream. Can you tell me, while we've got you on the floor, to talk about some of the educational initiatives that were undertaken during this mission?
Yes, so we had continuous appearance in front of the students. So we had like a tour in the UAE. We went to every single major city. Yeah. And we invited a lot of schools, and we gave them a chance to ask questions. Some of them, they were really interesting questions, like how do you sleep, how do you go to the toilet, how do you eat, and then other questions about the science, sure. And then some questions about how do we become someone like you. So very interesting question, and we wanted to explain this real life. So I would do some demonstration with water, food, and some toys just to explain some basic physics. So I think overall it was a very good chance for and very good exposure for the students to see what's going on board the International Space Station. And then when we go to a university level, we had some competitions with university students. So they had the chance to program a flying robot. It's called Astro B. So there was a challenge between 5 universities in the UAE, and they had the chance to program an actual robot on board the International Space Station. And I was telling them, I envy you guys because this is really cool just to be able to program a robot in a station that is floating the globe with a speed of 27,000 kilometers and an altitude of 400 kilometers. So it's really, really extraordinary.
So I'm curious about adapting to life in microgravity, as I said, and the kind of challenges and the psychological effects of that as well. So Dimitri, I wonder if you can tell me what the biggest challenge of adapting to life is.
Yeah, of course, it's a big challenge to adapt, and as you mentioned, psychology. Of course, you are on space, on board the station, without your family. First of all, it's all about your family. Since you launched on board the station, on board the spacecraft, some troubles starting to be in your home. Starting from the plumbing, from other stuff, and you as a man, you managed to fix all this problem, and your family living alone, no, literally not alone, but without you on the ground. And this is the most challenging thing, to leave your family without you for these long months on the ground. For me, personally, that was the biggest psychology challenge.
Yeah. Andrei, how do you physically prepare? I mean, no, it's a very intense training, but how do you, get yourself in shape for the effects of microgravity?
How do I get prepared? It's quite difficult to tell if we had to undergo a lot of G-force, and the exercises, the training is more physical training. We dedicate a lot of time to this part. And how was I feeling? How I was perceiving the microgravitation. It's quite difficult to feel 0G, and it's better to feel it, we experience. And as I say, just push something and then you go in the opposite direction. It feels amazing to be in zero gravity. Спасибо.
I'm going to flip back to Frank. What are some of the countermeasures that you use to cope with the negative effects of microgravity?
Sure. So some of the biggest challenges physically that you face are bone density loss. And that's obviously because you don't have the constant pressure of standing, walking, that we have here on Earth, and you actually get quite a bit of benefit from just those two simple activities. And so we do a lot of resistance training while we're in space. We have about an hour to an hour and a half of working out what we would consider weightlifting here on Earth, but obviously we don't use weights because that wouldn't be very productive. And so we have a machine that uses 2 large vacuum cylinders to provide that resistance. And all of us spend quite a bit of time on that every day in order to maintain that bone density. And back when we first started living in space, astronauts were losing up to 20% of their bone density. Now, most of us, even those of us who were up there for a year, can keep that down to about 5%. And that's due to that training that we're able to do while we're there. We also do quite a bit of cardiovascular resistance just to make sure that our heart, as it deals with all the fluid shifts, right? Most of your fluids that are in your legs shift up to your upper body. So while we eat well in space, a lot of us look like we gain 10 pounds, but that's actually just the fluids as they shift.
Am I right that you grow when you're in? You gain a couple of inches, don't you?
You do, yeah. We didn't quite catch up to Woody, but I think most of us gain anywhere from 1 to 3 centimeters.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you lose all of that as soon as you land.
Apart from Woody. Apart from Woody.
Yeah. So yeah, the beauty of it is because we have been doing this for 23 years, we've kind of, through trial and error, have come to figure out what works. And we're able to maintain a pretty good level of health while we're up there.
Yeah. Woody, what are your sleep patterns like when you're up there?
So we actually operate a normal 24-hour day on the space station. The space station works on Greenwich Mean Time, and that's kind of just a somewhat arbitrary choice that works well for all the control centers all over the world. But I would get up most days between 6:30 and 7. We get up, we eat breakfast, we start the workday around 7:30. We work till about 7:30 p.m. We have some evening activities, then we go to bed. So in that sense, we're just on that normal 24-hour cycle, just like on Earth. And we do some little things like, I remember when I got on board, Frank kind of taught me about turning the lights off at night and closing some window shutters. And I did little things like trying to get some bright sunlight in my eyes early in the morning, and then maybe avoiding that in the evening, just to help out with my circadian rhythm.
Thank you. Hazar, what would you say are the most unique aspects of living and working in a very confined space?
Being up there, it's really a unique opportunity. I lose count, but probably less than 700 people been to space, which is really something during the whole history of a human space flight. So being up there, I think one of the two things that I would like to mention is looking at Earth from there. That overview effect, the perspective that we have, is the appreciation of what we have here on ground. That's really huge. We are orbiting Earth 16 times per day, so we can see day and night for 16 times, and the cycle and looking at different places all around the world. That's really overwhelming feeling. And the other side is doing science. It's amazing, just the achievement of being up there, being part of this bigger picture. Doing scientific experiments, being part of international like a community, that's something amazing.
Sultan, how do you, in your head, get your head around the fact if you're going to be up there and, spacewalks? I mean, it's just insane to comprehend.
I think what made it easier is the childhood dream. This is something I've been dreaming about, and going to space. It's like a target, it's a goal. So throughout my life, I kept reading about space and dreaming going to space. So if you put yourself in that position and you're preparing for that mission, and there you go, you're in space, I think you will give it everything you have to make that a success. Yet you have to, I think, manage it well, thanks to the ground teams, that they facilitate everything on the ground. I think they play a bigger role in terms of preparing our schedules and making everything neat and prepared for. And talking about the family, it is something that we need to take care of as well before the mission. Luckily, we come from large communities, large or big families. I had all the support from the family members. They taught my kids. They took them to groceries, and they bought their gifts for Eids and everything. So from that regard, I think going to space with everything settled and everything is taken care of, it makes it very easy for you to perform what you have dreamed about, and you've prepared yourself mentally to do. The rest of it, I think we do a good amount of training. So preparing for a mission, it takes literally many years. So you go there, you feel like you're in a simulation, and you have a schedule, as Woody mentioned. We work as per that schedule to do science, do maintenance, go for EVA, and just fulfill that 6 months of work. Yep.
Sergey, how do you keep the morale up? I mean, you guys are there, you're professional, you're there to work, but what do you do on the downtime? Do you have downtime in space?
This is my second flight in space, and as for me, I prepared for my first flight 8 years, and this was my aim. And of course, I was so excited to be in space. And first flight, I was so glad and happy when I sit in my rocket and went to space. Second flight, I was more experienced and not so funny for me, but of course I was excited too, but second flight it was more calm.
Okay.
Mentally. But of course, this is second flight was more bigger and 1 year in space, and we had a lot of events, a lot of EVAs. Totally, we had 14 EVAs during our 2 expeditions, and this is a very good achievement. And I'm glad that we had very good relationship during our expeditions, and we support each other every time. And we had a lot of interesting events like New Year, birthdays, each other's, and as for me, this is best time in my life. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen, are there strategies that you can use to deal with any kind of anxiety and, you know, when you realize you're in that confined space?
Well, I spent 14 years in the submarine force before I became an astronaut. So it just seemed natural to me to live in a metal tube for months on end. The view's a lot better from space. The food's not so good. But I will say that you know, this crew, having the opportunity to spend 6 months in space with this crew, they made it so easy. Just fantastic people. We had an awful lot of fun, as Sergey alluded to. We had a lot of fun. We had birthdays, we had movies, we had you know, simple things like having meals together. It was just very enjoyable. Watching Woody and Sergey play chess, that was actually pretty exciting as well. So I actually had anticipated, because I had done 3 short missions before I'd spent the deployments on submarines. I anticipated having more time to basically read, but we had so much fun. I didn't finish I finished 1 book in 6 months, and I read a lot more than that usually, because it was just so much fun to spend time with this crew.
Tell me about the food. You mentioned meals there. What's space food like, and how do you maintain a healthy diet, or is that possible?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They do a great job preparing our food for U.S. astronauts. It's all prepared at Johnson Space Center. It's essentially like camping food. It's rehydratable and there's thermostabilized, and but we have the opportunity to eat all of the international food as well. So I had food from European Space Agency, food from the JAXA Space Agency. We enjoyed a lot of Russian food, and the UAE provided a couple meals as well, which was absolutely fantastic. And then we actually get some bonus food as people get little resupplies from the mission from their friends and family on the ground. So sharing that was a big part of it. And you know, meals are a real important part of any time you're living with a group of people. And they do a good job really trying to, I don't think we landed too unhealthy, so I think they did a great job.
Dimitri, after all that food, you obviously need to work out. Are there certain routines that you have to follow?
Yes, definitely. 2.5 hours in a day, we have to make exercise, physical exercise. We have a lot of equipment, treadmills. We have special machine, so multi-tool physical exercise called ARED on the US segment. It's a bars, it's everything, literally everything, like in a gym, in a big gym, but all in one. It's like a Switzerland knife in one, like, but gym. Yeah, we have a bicycle, a lot of things to do, and we have to support our muscle system in these weightlessness conditions, and it's obligatory to make physical exercise every day, not weekdays, but at Saturday and Sundays too, as well.
Thank you. Hazar, how do you keep in touch with family and friends when you're up there?
There are different type of means we can use on board the station. So we have internet on board the station. We are just below the satellite coverage, so we can use that as a KU band to reach to our families and daily, in daily activities. After we finish from our daily activities, our work, we can just call anyone we want. We have IP phone, so we can call anyone we want on this earth. So if we have that number, and we have also different things like we can call it like a FaceTime. We call it Doxime, where it's like you can communicate with them and call them visually, and that's really important because it's gonna affect the morale of both sides. I mean, like as we go up there, our families is part of that journey. We are up there for 6 months or 1 year. Our family with us on that trip, and that's really important. Especially our spouses, our kids, and we need to be there for them as much as they need to be there for us.
And in effect, you guys become family. You know, you gained yourself some new brothers, I guess.
Indeed.
Yeah. Frank, can you tell me what criteria did you all have to meet, you know, in the selection process for Expedition 69?
Well, I don't know that it was specific to Expedition 69, but as astronauts and cosmonauts, I think we look for similar things. You know, expeditionary skills is what we refer to, so good teamwork is probably the #1 thing that we look for. And then, of course, you have to have a strong academic background because this job does involve a lot of exposure to different fields of engineering, medicine. You know, it is actually rocket science, essentially, that you're having to learn. And so having a strong academic background helps. And then also just the ability to thrive in austere or difficult environments. And so we look for those expeditionary skills of being able to go out and operate in challenging environments. And so usually people with those types of backgrounds are who we bring into our Corps. And it's actually pretty amazing how similar all of our personalities tend to be in that regard. Now, as Steve mentioned, the fact that he said one of our fun activities was watching 2 people play chess probably tells you a little bit about, you know, we're more on the academic side, but very strong operationally, I think. And so, but overall, I think teamwork is the #1 thing we look for.
Who's the medic? What happens if somebody gets a bit poorly while they're up there?
Yeah, so it depends on the makeup of the crew. For our expedition, I think I was the only physician on board. You know, that I don't go up there and operate as a physician. It just happens to be my background. We all do get medical, pretty robust medical training. So if I were the one to get hurt, I have full confidence that my crewmates would have been able to take care of me. But I think it does provide a certain level of comfort knowing that we can deal with just about anything that happens up there. And again, we do have an amazing ground team that provides coverage 24/7. So if something were to happen, we can immediately call to the ground and essentially get walked through whatever medical scenario faces up there.
Sultan, ahead of going up, you know, what kind of bonding sessions, how did you guys get, you know, to build that camaraderie?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one key element is to come together as a crew. I was delightful to be among Crew 6, Steven Bowen, Woody Hoburg, and Andrei Fedayev. The assignment was really quick. It was late into the preparation. I think Steve and Woody started ahead of us, Steve as a commander and Woody as a pilot. But I think the bond was really genuine between us. Although of my late entry, I think we developed a habit of sharing ideas, and throughout the training trips that we took, we went obviously to different countries because this is expeditionary preparation. So we go to Japan, we go to Russia, we go to Canada and Europe to train as a crew. And I think that was the best part of it. we have a saying in Arabic, if you want to know a real person, travel with him. So you experience his habits and ways of him dealing with you and you dealing with him. So I think this is what happened. We traveled as a crew, we ate, we sat, and I think the most creative stuff that we did was during that time. Even our patch was designed I think around a dining table, having dinner. So I think we went to space as a crew. We returned as a crew, and as friends as well. So it's always good. Yeah.
Sergey, how does the leadership structure, when you're up there, contribute to the efficiency of the mission?
First of all, my responsibility was safety of crew, and we had a lot of training, like one team for solve issues if you have something, and of course this is not. I couldn't manage the science of US segment, but sometimes we have some works together and experiments together. It was a very nice activity, and I felt that we one team and we do one great, amazing job. And as a leader, I'm proud and thank you of my crew members for great job together during our flight. Thank you so much, everybody, guys.
Thank you. Woody, you guys are all from such different backgrounds and cultures. What was the one thing you took away from your comrades, your team, when you got back?
Well, that's easy, lifelong friendships. But I do think that's one of the strengths that we have as astronauts and cosmonauts and this very international crew. We all have a diversity of backgrounds. We all come from different life experiences, and that's what makes us a really strong crew on board. But yeah, what I took away from our time together was definitely just lifelong friendships.
So part of your mission was obviously doing all these scientific experiments and research. What is the importance of doing that in space, Woody?
I think, I was talking with Frank earlier this morning, and we were talking about how the time horizon for a lot of this research is maybe decades into the future. A lot of this is actually basic scientific research, and Steve was talking about this as well. So that's one element, is just like on Earth, that importance of long time horizon, basic scientific research. And then, another thing I'm very passionate about was kind of using the space station as a proving ground. I think we've been living and working in space for over 23 years aboard the International Space Station. So anyone less than 23 years old right now, every day of your life, we have had astronauts, cosmonauts, astronauts from all over the world living and working aboard the space station. And in doing so, we've learned a lot about how to live and work in space. And I think that is really important as we look forward, as we go to explore the places like the moon and then ultimately Mars, taking this experience and using it to better our future missions. It's just going to be really valuable, that time we've had on the space station.
Stephen, how are those experiments and research methods adapted to deal with the microgravity when you're up there? And how do you ensure accurate readings and, to make sure that everything is correct?
So the microgravity environment is actually the reason that we do these experiments in space, because it removes that aspect for the basic science, as Woody was alluding to. So that's driven what the experiments are. So there are actually some experiments that they launch into space, they get to space station, and then they return to Earth on the very same vehicle. They don't even make it across the hatch. There's others that we bring across, we install in space station, and they run autonomously, providing data back down to the Earth. without our interaction. There's others that we bring up, we interact with. For instance, the biofabrication facility where the meniscus was grown, we were actually working with that material on a daily basis. And then the other experiments are ourselves. So the experiments that are ourselves, where we're drawing our own blood and getting our own samples and doing that analysis, that's actually probably where we have the largest direct impact on the science, as you say. So, you know, we get a generic set of training to allow us to have those skills. And we really try very hard, because we know that the primary investigators, some have invested their entire careers on getting these experiments to the space station. And we are very invested in ensuring they get the results they can. We want all the experiments to work. We invest a lot of effort to make sure they do. And as the subjects of some of the experiments, you know, it can get tired after donating blood an umpteen number of times. But, you know, you really try to focus on getting it done correctly. So we are very invested in making sure that the results make it back to the Earth.
How important is the work you've done and this research for future space endeavors? I mean, I think it was Woody mentioned earlier, you know, we've got the moon, you've got Mars. You know, what role is that going to play in that?
Well, actually, I mean, as Woody alluded to, we've been living continuously on Earth for 23 years now. It's that in and of itself is an amazing feat that allows us to demonstrate the ability to potentially live elsewhere. You know, when you go to the moon, your time scale for communication is still relatively short on the terms of seconds. When we go on to Mars, they're going to be much longer communications delays. So we need to be able to operate autonomously. So we're learning all of these skills to take us further. We're learning the engineering that will support it. But on the science side, I joined the astronaut office before the first crew ever went to space station, and I have watched the evolution of how we live in space over that time. And we have, as Frank alluded to earlier, you know, that has evolved as we have learned, and we've upgraded the space station throughout. And so the very things that we learned early on, the bone density and muscle mass loss, one of the first things we learned was that there's no magic pill for that. For osteoporosis here on Earth, there is no magic pill. Load-bearing exercise on a very frequent basis is your best countermeasure. So we carried that from space back to Earth. And that type of thing really makes life better on Earth and allows us to explore. You know, the challenge of exploration, the water we recycle on orbit, we've achieved over 90-something% recycle rate for the water. So all the sweat, condensate, and urine we collect on board, we recycle, we reuse that. And that will allow us to explore deeper. But that same facility here on Earth provides clean drinking water in places that never had clean drinking water before. So it's just absolutely amazing to see.
Sultan, you were the first Arab to perform a spacewalk. You know, what did that mean for, you know, the Arab world in general?
I think it was a great opportunity, honestly, and just to let you know that even if you are qualified to go for an EVA, you're not guaranteed to have one. So I was really privileged and lucky to be performing that EVA. And we train a lot for this opportunity. So we have an MBL training, which is the neutral buoyancy lab training. We go underwater with an EMU suit, and we simulate EVAs, fixing stuff, upgrading the International Space Station, and so on. So we had a planned operation of installing solar arrays. I was assigned to be doing the first EVA in that series, so I think it went very well. Going out the hatch is really incredible, and I remember Hazar telling me that monitoring my heart rate, it was really interesting seeing me calm, and then when we reached the vacuum pressure, my heart rate went up, just going out. Steve went out first, and then going out and seeing the vastness of space and the darkness, and it was really incredible. And you go out and you know that what's protecting you from dying is only the suit. So it has to work.
How do you hold that together?
It is a scary thought, but what kept me really focused is knowing that this is a lifetime opportunity, and it's happening for the first time, carrying the UAE flag and someone from the region as well. Plus, we literally memorize the procedure. We know what to do. Every single step, we know when to do it and how should we do it. So just keeping yourself in that mindset of doing a series of actions, I think that kept me focused, and I let all the negative thoughts behind me, and I just went into that 7 hours EVA, thinking that it was only 7 minutes, because it was really, really focused exercise, and luckily I made it back safely with no issues. But Steve was there to help me if any issues would happen.
Wow. Do you play music when you're out doing those walks?
Well, I refer that question to Andre. He's our artist on board. He's a great guitar player.
Hazar, I wanted to ask you, in terms of, we've mentioned the ground control, that there's a big team here on Earth. What kind of support do they give you when you're up there?
Definitely, ground support is a huge thing for the crew up there. They are running the whole station for us, and they monitor everything. They are actually working 27 hours, 24/7 days, every day, to make sure that everything is really safe for the crew, and then the vehicle itself, the station is really safe, and that's really important. So while they're up there floating, enjoying the microgravity, ground teams, we were like doing every day, like meetings, making sure that all the activities, the daily activities, the weekly activities, even like the next month activities is really all set. We trouble check them in terms of time. They're gonna not affect anything in terms of the efficiency of being up there and on board the International Space Station, and plus making sure that we involved all of the crew on board there about our plans. It's really crucial to make sure that we utilize every second of their time on board the International Space Station, because it's all about collecting data and also about doing science on board the International Space Station. So I remember in Johnson Space Center, we are doing every week a meeting, which is all about just scheduling each one of them, what they will do for the next day, in terms of like each hour what they're gonna do in terms of eating, breaks, when they're gonna go do practicing or exercise, doing even like free time. All of that is being calculated. So it's very important to be part of that process.
Frank, can you, something we don't always get right here on Earth, but how and what is the role of astronauts to promote peaceful and sustainable uses for space, for the benefits of all of humanity?
Yeah, so I think that's one of my favorite parts of our mission statement, is that everything we do, whether it's innovation or inspiration, we do for the benefit of humanity. And I think for all of us up here, that's probably the greatest honor, is the fact that we don't just represent our agencies, whether it's MBRSC or NASA or our countries, but really we represent the world. And that's an incredible honor. And I think, as we continue, it does use a lot of resources to get us to space. But I think it's our responsibility, both as astronauts and as agencies, to make the best use of those resources and show the world that, hey, it is worth that small cost because of the benefits that we're able to glean from that environment, and bring that back to Earth, and hopefully continue to improve our community, our Earth community down here.
I could sit and talk to you guys all day, but I think we will throw it open for a few questions from our audience. So there are going to be some microphones handed out. Does anybody have any questions for our panel?
Hi guys, congratulations. I'd like to know, how does being in space change the way you think about being on Earth?
There's many aspects to this. I've heard many astronauts even before my time talk about the overview effect, and just seeing the planet from a vantage point that we don't get to see from here on Earth. Seeing that there are no borders from space is kind of profound. I go outside here on Earth and I look up at the sky and it looks infinite to me. Like it seems like the sky goes up forever. But from low Earth orbit, which is actually not that far away from Earth, we're only 400 kilometers away, but even from low Earth orbit, you can see just how thin Earth's atmosphere is. It is a very, very thin layer protecting Earth from that vacuum of space that Sultan was talking about. When we're up there, it's very much, it's very apparent that it is either the walls of the International Space Station or maybe a suit protecting us from death, which is what is outside the space station. And that is also what is just 400 kilometers away from Earth. And that tiny, thin, beautiful atmosphere is keeping us all alive. So that was special to get to experience firsthand just how fragile our planet is.
Yes, it seems like humans are being modified to fit into space. But if you look into the future and you wanted to take humans to Mars or other planets, you have to modify space to fit humans. So is all of this worth it? Is all the training and all the modifications that have been done to you worth it for the future?
I don't feel like I've been modified much at all. So I understand the sense of the question. I think the real interesting part of that is we're already changing that. So with the commercial crew, the commercial missions to space station, we're opening up the opportunities to living in space to everybody, in essence. And in the long term, you're right, we need to be able to accommodate space to accommodate all of humanity, in a sense. Two of my heroes, Stephen Hawking and who everybody seems to know, and John Young, who was an Apollo astronaut who had the opportunity to work with, both said the same thing: single planet species don't survive. So ultimately, we need to look ahead and learn how to bring those things, that very fragile atmosphere, we need to sustain here as long as possible. But ultimately, we're going to end up leaving. And these are all tiny, tiny steps that we're taking right now to allow that future to occur.
Sadly, we are out of time. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together one final time for the Expedition 69 ISS mission crew.